Imagine a government so twisted it allegedly uses illicit drugs as a weapon against its neighbors, deliberately flooding our streets with poison. Today, the world just watched the U.S. strike back. On September 3rd, 2025, President Donald Trump ordered a decisive strike. It was on a suspected Tren de Aragua vessel, that's a transnational gang, started in Venezuelan prisons down in the southern Caribbean.
And it was allegedly carrying drugs, right? Heading for the U.S.
Exactly. And look, this isn't some isolated event. It comes right after the biggest U.S. military buildup we've seen in Latin America since, 1989?
That's right, since Panama. We're talking 8 warships, a nuclear sub, thousands of Marines.
All sent there to confront what the U.S. is calling a state-sponsored narco-terrorist network, Venezuela's Cartel of the Suns.
It's a really bold action, and it marks a critical point, I think, in America's fight against this kind of transnational crime.
And it really highlights the desperate measures of regimes allegedly clinging to power through this illicit trade.
Yeah, and we're talking of a network accused not just of, making its members rich, but specifically trying to harm the U.S. by flooding our country with cocaine.
What's truly critical here, I think, is how we're understanding this threat now. The U.S. Department of Justice is alleging this cartel, and under Nicolás Maduro, it's moved beyond just profit.
Right, they're saying it's actively using drugs as a weapon against America, intentionally inflicting harm on American users.
So our deep dive today, we're going to peel back the layers on this shocking reality of Venezuela's Cartel of the Suns. We'll look at the alleged leaders, the huge criminal operations, the dangerous alliances.
And we'll examine the U.S. response, too, how it's escalating. That includes the, $50 million bounty now on Maduro's head.
50 million, yeah. And this unprecedented military deployment.
So our mission here is to really understand how this shadow government allegedly operates, the real threats it poses to American security, and, what these decisive actions mean for the region and for our own future.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we need to go back to the beginning. This name, Cartel of the Suns, it sounds dramatic, almost fictional, but its origins are quite real, aren't they?
Oh, they are. Very real. The term Cartel de los Soles, Cartel of the Suns, it first popped up back in 1993.
Okay.
And it refers to these little sun insignias, the ones Venezuelan generals wear on their uniforms to show their rank.
Oh, okay, I see.
The name really gained traction during investigations into 2 National Guard generals, Ramon Guillén Dávila and Orlando Hernández Villegas. They were being investigated for drug trafficking.
So it wasn't just a couple of bad apples even back then. It pointed to something bigger within the military.
Exactly. It signaled a growing problem.
So it started as corruption, but that seemed to metastasize pretty quickly into something systemic, didn't it? Reports suggest the initial military involvement in drug trafficking, maybe around 1998, was mostly, taking bribes, looking the other way.
That's the picture, yeah. Limited stuff. But then, under Hugo Chávez, things really took off.
Oh.
Well, under Chávez, from about 1999 to 2013, corruption reportedly just exploded. It reached unprecedented levels.
Wow.
And our sources suggest Chávez allegedly gave legal immunity to officials involved in drug trafficking, not just ignoring it, but maybe actively using it to, secure loyalty.
So basically baking a criminal enterprise right into the state structure.
That's what it looks like, yeah. And a really key moment, a terrible one for U.S. security, was when Chávez's government kicked the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, out of Venezuela. That was 2005.
Right, I remember that.
That single move just flung the doors wide open. It made Venezuela a much, much more attractive route for the international drug trade.
And the direct impact on American families, it becomes clearer when you look at Maduro's alleged role, right? The DOJ claims Nicolás Maduro, the current sort of de facto leader, he didn't just inherit this mess.
No, they allege he helped manage it and eventually came to lead the Cartel of the Suns as he climbed the ranks.
Yeah.
He's accused of personally putting people involved in drug trafficking into high government jobs.
So how is this different then from a sort of classic cartel structure? How does his leadership change things?
That's a really crucial distinction. It's not described as a traditional hierarchy, like a pyramid with a single boss at the top. It's more like a loose network of cells.
Okay.
And these cells are deeply embedded within the Venezuelan government and security forces. We're talking Army, Navy, Air Force, National Guard.
So it's everywhere.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It means it has allegedly corrupted legitimate Venezuelan institutions, the military, intelligence, even the legislature and the courts. It really is a state-sponsored criminal enterprise where the line between government and organized crime is just completely blurred.
And the people accused are literally at the very top. I mean, Nicolás Maduro
Yeah.
himself, that $50 million U.S. bounty, it's for allegedly leading this cartel, negotiating huge cocaine shipments with the FARC, the Colombian rebels.
Exactly. And then there's Diosdado Cabello. He's the current Minister of the Interior. Back in 2015, his former security chief, Limsey Salazar, accused him of actually being the head of the Cartel of the Suns. Yeah, coordinating shipments, profiting from corruption. He got sanctioned by OFAC, the U.S. Treasury, back in 2018.
And it doesn't stop there, right? There are other big names.
No, it doesn't. You've got Hugo Carvajal, El Polo, former head of military intelligence. He was extradited to the U.S. last year, 2023, and word is he's cooperating now.
That could be significant.
Very significant. Could expose even more high-level involvement. Then there's Tarek El Aissami, the vice president, sanctioned by the Treasury in 2017 for facilitating drug shipments. Nestor Reverol, head of the National Guard, indicted by the U.S. in 2016 for helping traffickers, tipping them off, stopping investigations.
It shows how deep this alleged corruption runs, right to the core of the state.
Pervasive is the word.
But this isn't just about, powerful people lining their pockets. The scale of the crime here, especially the drug trafficking, it's had devastating effects right here in the U.S.
Absolutely. Their operations went from just taking bribes to actively facilitating massive multi-ton cocaine shipments.
And using state assets to do it.
Right. Exploiting military bases, airports, seaports, using the whole state infrastructure to move drugs from Colombia through Venezuela and then out to the U.S. and Europe.
The numbers are just mind-boggling.
They are. Back by 2004, the U.S. State Department estimated 250 tons or more of cocaine were moving through Venezuela every year.
250,000 kilos.
Yeah. And specific incidents just show how bold they got. Remember 2006? A 5.6-ton cocaine shipment, allegedly coordinated by Cabello and Carvajal, sent from Venezuela to Mexico on a DC-9 jet. Mexican authorities seized that one.
5.6 tons on one plane.
Then in 2013, 1.3 tons seized off an Air France flight. Came from Acadie Airport near Caracas, headed to Paris. That was the biggest cocaine bust ever on mainland France.
And it gets even more, personal and disturbing, doesn't it? That 2015 case involving the First Lady's family.
Oh, yeah. Celia Flores' relatives. Maduro's adopted son and nephew, arrested trying to move 800 kilograms of cocaine.
And where from?
From Maduro's own presidential hangar at Maiquetía Airport. The story was they were trying to raise $20 million for a political campaign.
Unbelievable.
They were convicted in 2016. It just highlights how deeply this stuff was allegedly woven into the state itself.
And this brings us back to that point about weaponizing drugs. The DOJ alleges the cartel under Maduro specifically aimed to flood the U.S. with cocaine.
Yes, to inflict harm on American users, using drugs as a direct weapon against America. That's the allegation.
And the impact is undeniable, isn't it? The overdose crisis.
Tragically, yes. In 2024, drug overdose deaths in the U.S. went over 90,000. You can't disconnect that entirely from the supply pouring in. It's an insidious attack on our communities, on our people.
And it's not just drugs either. This network is accused of other stuff too, right? Arms trafficking.
That's part of it. Allegedly providing military-grade machine guns, rocket launchers to allies like the FARC.
And money laundering.
Pervasive money laundering, yes. Diosdado Cabello, for instance, sanctioned for alleged schemes. One involved laundering $5 million in FARC drug money to buy palm oil equipment from Malaysia, of all things.
Oh, okay.
Plus widespread extortion, illicit trade in precious minerals. It's a huge criminal portfolio, way beyond just narcotics.
This whole web of crime, it stretches beyond Venezuela's borders too, doesn't it? The cartel isn't working alone. It relies on some pretty dangerous alliances.
Absolutely. Critical point. There's been what the U.S. calls a long-standing violent narco-terrorism conspiracy between the Cartel de los Soles and the FARC, going back to at least 1999.
So 4 decades.
For decades. The FARC allegedly moved some operations into Venezuela under the cartel's protection. They reportedly got weapons, cash, in exchange for ramping up cocaine production.
And even though the FARC officially disbanded?
Right, back in 2017. But estimates suggest maybe up to 2,500 armed FARC dissidents are still operating with impunity inside Venezuela, allegedly working with the cartel.
And then there's a newer alliance, just as worrying, with Tren de Aragua. That gang we mentioned started in Venezuelan prisons.
Yeah, and that group was designated a foreign terrorist organization by Secretary of State Marco Rubio in February 2025. President Trump also called them a national security threat back in January.
So why is this prison gang suddenly a transnational threat operating across Latin America and even here?
Well, the Cartel of the Suns allegedly provides material support to Tren de Aragua. And this group is into everything horrible. Human trafficking, extortion, sexual exploitation, murder.
And they've exploited the migration crisis.
Shamelessly. Over 7.7 million people have fled Venezuela since 2014. Tren de Aragua preys on them, recruits them, victimizes them. They were even linked to that 2025 kidnapping and murder of the former Venezuelan lieutenant, Ronald Ojeda, down in Chile. That operation was allegedly ordered from inside Venezuela.
Just horrific. And they work with the Mexican cartels, too.
Of course. They're accused of collaborating with groups like Mexico's Sinaloa Cartel, providing protection, logistics for drug trafficking.
And Sinaloa is responsible for so much of the fentanyl coming into the U.S.
A huge portion, yes, causing immense suffering and death here. And think about the violence down there. Sinaloa-related conflicts alone caused over 30,000 homicides in Mexico in 2024.
So these are global threats, but they hit very close to home, impacting American lives directly.
Precisely. This complex web of alliances makes the whole thing incredibly formidable. It really shows a deliberate strategy, leveraging criminal networks for political power, for financial gain, with just devastating human costs across the entire hemisphere.
Okay, so given all that, what's America's stand been? The U.S. response seems pretty decisive recently, really framing it as narco-terrorism.
It has been decisive. On July 25th, 2025, the U.S. designated the Cartel of the Suns as a specially designated global terrorist organization. That's a big step.
And other countries followed suit.
They did, quickly. By early September 2025, you had Ecuador, Paraguay, Argentina, the Dominican Republic, all making similar designations. So a growing regional coalition is forming against this.
Which shows it's not just a U.S. concern.
Exactly. It demonstrates clear international recognition of how dangerous this cartel is.
And then there are the direct legal actions. The indictments back in March 2020 against Maduro Cabello for narco-terrorism.
Right. And then just recently, early August 2025, the U.S. doubled the reward for Maduro. It's now up to $50 million for information leading to his arrest or conviction on those charges.
$50 million, that sends a very clear message.
It absolutely does. But maybe the most visible action, the most unprecedented, is the military move.
The deployment in August 2025.
Yeah, that significant U.S. military force sent to the Southern Caribbean. 8 warships, a nuclear sub, 4,500 Marines. Like you said, the biggest buildup in the region since the Panama invasion in '89.
And it wasn't just a show of force. It led to that direct strike on September 3rd.
Correct. President Trump ordered that strike on the suspected Tren de Aragua boat, claiming it had drugs headed for the U.S., and his message afterwards was blunt.
Beware. Yeah. And there's more where that came from. It sounds like a warning of potential future actions.
It certainly does. And deploying ships capable of launching Tomahawk cruise missiles, that suggests they're ready for potentially more than just drug interdiction patrols.
Plus, they've shown they can operate inside Venezuela, right? That rescue of opposition leaders from the Argentine embassy in Caracas.
That definitely demonstrated a capability, yes. It implies potentially a serious shift in strategic thinking.
And beyond the military, there are the sanctions. They've been ongoing since 2005, targeting individuals, entities. But Trump expanded them.
She did. Broader financial and sectoral sanctions against the Maduro government, state-owned companies like PDVSA, the oil giant.
And another big policy shift recently ending TPS for Venezuela.
Yes, temporary protected status.
Yeah.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced its termination, effective 60 days after September 10th, 2025.
Plus that tariff threat since April 2025, any country buying Venezuelan oil could face a 25% tariff on their exports to the U.S.
These are all pretty strong economic and political levers being pulled, clearly aimed at protecting American interests and applying pressure.
Okay, so how is the Venezuelan government reacting to all this pressure, the accusations, the military presence?
Well, officially, vehement denial. They call the Cartel of the Suns a U.S. invention, a smear campaign, just to justify intervention and sanctions.
Diosdado Cabello said that just recently, didn't he?
He did. Echoed the denial on August 7th. And interestingly, Colombian President Gustavo Petro also weighed in, stating on August 25th that the cartel does not exist.
So a complete dismissal from them. And they're ramping up the rhetoric, too.
Oh, significantly. Maduro claimed on September 2nd that those 8 U.S. ships, 1,200 missiles, the submarine, they were all targeting Venezuela. He called the U.S. operations an act of war.
Wow.
And his defense minister, Vladimir Pedrino Lopez, declared on September 1st that Venezuela is ready to confront any attack, saying, "We will fight if you dare to set foot in Venezuela."
And someone even claimed the strike video was AI.
Yeah. Venezuelan Minister Freddy Nanez suggested the White House video of the naval strike was AI-generated. So you have these starkly opposing narratives playing out.
Okay, so putting it all together, given how entrenched these networks are, what are the implications here? What's the path forward? U.S. actions might disrupt things short term, but these groups are resilient, right?
Extremely resilient. And adaptive. You can expect them to try and shift operations, maybe move towards the Canadian border, expand more into Europe.
Flip routes, new markets.
Exactly. And use new tech tunnels. Submersibles are already happening. Maybe try to recruit more U.S. citizens for trafficking to blend in better. It's that classic balloon effect. Squeeze it here, it bulges out somewhere else.
So just applying pressure in one spot won't kill the problem. And this idea of designating cartels as terrorist organizations, it kind of changes how we think about terrorism itself, doesn't it?
It really does. Academically, it broadens the definition beyond purely political motives. Now we're including narco-terrorism, which is driven primarily by financial gain, but the impact is terror and destabilization.
So what's the key insight there for our national security?
I think the key insight is recognizing this blurring of lines. It's crime, it's insurgency, it's state-sponsored aggression all mixed together. Labeling it narco-terrorism isn't just semantics. It acknowledges that financial motives can fuel threats just as dangerous as political ones.
And that demands a different kind of response.
A whole new strategic response, exactly. It's a fundamental shift in how we have to confront these global threats.
Which really clarifies things. So if you want sustained impact, you need a much broader approach, right? Multidimensional.
Absolutely. Experts really argue for that. You need the tough supply-side efforts, law enforcement, interdiction, cutting off the flow. That's crucial.
But that's not enough on its own.
No. Critically, you also need demand-side initiatives. Prevention, treatment, recovery programs right here in the U.S. to shrink the market these groups exploit. That's how you truly protect American lives and communities at the source.
And international cooperation is key too, isn't it? Especially with countries like Mexico, who might be wary of U.S. military moves, but are also facing huge internal problems from these same cartels.
Essential. Building robust partnerships, even when there are sensitivities about sovereignty, is vital. You need a unified front to tackle a transnational problem.
It feels like this whole situation, these decisive U.S. actions, they carry a lot of weight beyond just this specific conflict.
Huge geopolitical weight, yes. It signals a very strong U.S. commitment to national security, to confronting threats directly, whether they're at home or abroad. It projects strength, it projects influence in a very complicated world. It reinforces American leadership, basically.
So let's recap. We've really peeled back the layers today on Venezuela's Cartel of the Suns, this alleged state-sponsored criminal network that's accused of deeply corrupting a nation and actively trying to weaponize drugs against the United States.
And we've seen the direct, very aggressive actions the U.S. is taking now to dismantle this network, countered, of course, by the defiant, sometimes almost absurd, denials from the Venezuelan regime. It's a stark contrast.
It really is. This deep dive, I think it reveals a pretty sobering truth. When a nation's government allegedly becomes indistinguishable from a criminal organization, one that actively seeks to harm our citizens, well, the fight for freedom and security stretches way beyond just borders.
It absolutely does. It becomes a hemispheric issue, a global one even.
Which leaves us with a big question, doesn't it, for all of us?
Yeah.
How far are we as a nation willing to go to protect ourselves and the hemisphere from regimes that seem to embrace terror and drug trafficking as tools of the state?